Well, good evening, everybody. It's now getting quite dark here in the Scottish borders. 10 o'clock at night. Later on, when it's pitch black, I'll be having a conversation with a few of the people who sort of put themselves forward to help organise the virtual rally. That's not this Saturday. Next Saturday, the 20th. As soon as we can't all congregate in Manitowoc and assemble outside the courthouse there, then we can still have an online presence and certainly make our opinions felt. I saw a post and a tweet by the Hod himself, Mark Hoddinett, asking people to send in their own thoughts, photos, or maybe short videos in support. So I would strongly recommend people, don't make it so that it's just those that are hosting live chats over the weekend. Let's have as many people involved as possible. So we've now, obviously, the George Floyd situation has escalated phenomenally. We've now got protests seemingly across the world, even here in the UK, in Bristol, 350 miles south of here. There was quite a bit of cheering when they pulled down a statue that was erected in the 1890s to a prominent member of the community in Bristol back then, but somebody who had made his fortune in the slave trade. And although he had donated a huge amount of his wealth to the community, it still doesn't look good when you've got statues to somebody like that. Good evening. Reality check. How are you doing? Recently, yesterday and today, I've had people ask me, because they know that I follow the Making a Murder, Stephen Avery, Brendan Dassey case. And they said, how's the case going? How's it going? I said, well, it's actually going very well. I said that we're now waiting on Kathleen Zellner to respond to the response that the state had to give to what Zellner has filed. And basically, as far as I could tell, that the state really didn't address anything. They certainly didn't deal with the fact that on the bullet, they found wood. How you find wood on a bullet that supposedly has Teresa Halbach's DNA on it, that's a big question. I noticed Dr. Siltman, again, quite rightly, going on about the fact that, the only thing that tied Teresa Halbach to Stephen Avery, in terms of the house, his trailer or his garage, was that bullet, and the lengths that the state went to try and make sure that bullet tied Teresa Halbach to the garage. But as I say, they didn't address anything at all about the wood. I then explained that at trial, it was pointed out that they found cremains behind Stephen Avery's garage and trailer. I said, but they also found similar charred remains a mile away. But at the time, that was explained as being, they didn't know whether it was what the bones were, whether they were human or animal, and certainly not whose they were. And yet, amazingly, that was in 2007. In 2010, 2011, we find that contrary to the order by Judge Willis that biological material must be preserved, the state are handing the bones back. These bones that they couldn't even identify as being human, handing them back to the holdbacks. And of course, to somebody that's never followed the case, that they were just in amazement. They just couldn't understand. Well, what on earth is going on here? You know. And we got on to talking about the fact that the legal system is totally bizarre over there. We've got, as I pointed out, one of the claims from Zellner is ineffective assistance of counsel. And yet the state argue that Dean and Jerry did the best they did. And there was nothing wrong with the way that Dean and Jerry did their representation. And yet at the same time, in other paragraphs, they're pointing out that Stephen Avery could have done this, Stephen Avery could have done that, Stephen Avery could have done this at the time. Cut the rubbish, state. You're on about the same people. You're on about Dean Strang and Jerry Buting. Could have done this, could have done that. You know, we're not being fobbed off by your stupid play on words. You know, on the one hand, referring to the defence attorneys, saying there was nothing ineffective about their counsel, and yet on the other hand, you're pointing out that all of these things could have been done by Stephen Avery. We got on to obviously talking about one of the things I particularly like to look at is the fact that we've got plea deals in America. Obviously, they tried to nail Brendan Dassey into giving a plea deal. And the fact that prosecutors, that they will tell these defendants, we've got enough to put you away for life. You're never going to see the outside world again. But you can take the plea deal. We get 20 years. And so people do it. And now we're finding out years later, people who are being exonerated through DNA evidence that had actually confessed at the time and taken the deal. But you've got prosecutors who will then deliberately come out with this, well, they had the chance at the time, they took the plea deal. It's sold as seen. You accepted the plea deal. You've got to stick with it, regardless of whether DNA evidence years later proves that you're innocent. Tough. You've just got to live with it. And that's what a lot of people find very, very difficult to comprehend when you tell them that. I can't help wondering, is it because it's not so much a case of somebody was wrongfully convicted by accident, or whether the fact that these prosecutors fear the fact that their prosecution of these victims is going to be looked at, and they're going to find that it wasn't just an accident, it wasn't just a breakdown of communications. It wasn't the fact that the person was unfortunate. Well, yes, the person was unfortunate because it was deliberate. It was deliberate convicting of an innocent person. You wonder what have they got to hide. Certainly in the case of Stephen Brendan. When it comes to the escalation of the George Floyd protests, I can't help wondering that maybe immediately having seen the video of police officers holding him down for nearly 9 minutes, not allowing him to breathe at all, had the police officers then immediately not just been fired, but arrested for murder, I can't help thinking that would have made a huge difference. The fact that it was left nearly 4 days, yes, they were fired straight away, but that seemed to be about it, you know. So they lost their job and somebody's lost their life. Doesn't seem very fair. That's not justice. As I say, to me, it took them ages to decide to prosecute and to arrest and look at charging Chauvin with I believe it's now second-degree murder, manslaughter, but also you've got the other officers. Eventually, you know, when these protests have been going on so long, eventually they decide to arrest them and charge them. And it would have been so much better had they have done the right thing right from the word go. As I say, it seems that at times that there's just no willingness to accept that things have been done wrong. You know, the hope was that by sacking Chauvin, that would draw a line under it. No harm done, really. Well, no. Reality check. That is not how it's going to work. As I say, protests all around the world. As I say, it is very bizarre how you've got, as I say, going back to the prosecutors who want to insist that because somebody has been found guilty, that's it, end of story. That there's no chance of, or that there should be no second chance for the individual who's been convicted. And that just makes people suspicious that, what have you got to hide? You know, in the case of the Neenah Police Department shooting dead Michael Funk, it beggars belief. They've got the footage to show that the guy was shot down without any warning whatsoever, and that the guy that shot him down should not have been there. And yet they decide to sit on it and do nothing about it. And so they've never apologised. I'll say, it makes you wonder, what have they got to hide? Which brings us back, as I say, to the state. What have they got to hide? Why not have an evidentiary hearing? Well, I think we all know that the reason they don't want to have an evidentiary hearing is because the world will discover just how wrongful the conviction was, and just what was done. We will begin to find out exactly what was done in order to convict Steven Avery. That these things weren't done by accident. They were deliberately targeting Steven Avery. To get rid of, obviously, the threat of the lawsuit. Yes, maybe it wasn't just about the money. The money was a big thing. You've got people in the sheriff's department desperately worried about their own situations. Certainly, Kosturik and Vogel would have been very, very concerned, because they were the two main instigators. As I say, it makes you wonder what the state have got to hide. That they are so determined to avoid an evidentiary hearing that in other cases they're so determined not to say that they've done anything wrong. In the case of Derek Chauvin, not wanting to arrest him straight away, despite the fact that they've got the footage. This sort of inaction, this hope that by doing nothing, it'll just go away. Anyway, as I say, later on tonight, I believe about midnight, we'll be having a kind of like a get together to sort of discuss going forward, looking forward to the rally. As I say, check out Mark's Facebook post, and I think he tweeted it as well. But I'm sure that we've got lots more information to come, and it seems as if it's going to be another little marathon type event. But I say we really want to make it more to do with the rally, and I've certainly got some photos of last year's rally, photos and footage that I can happily share with you on the 20th of June, Saturday, 20th of June. So anyway, I'm going to, it's 10:15 now. I'm going to go and have a couple of beers and then catch up with some of the guys later on. Yeah, keep checking out all the various videos that come out. Sometimes there's so many, it's sometimes difficult to keep up with all of the videos that are coming out. And I must admit, I've quite enjoyed, well, obviously all the ones I've seen, and also I quite like checking out some stuff like music videos and motorbike speedway stuff, you know, in between a bit of Making the Murderer. Now, I have remembered one other thing I was going to point out, and that is that the book Murder in the Bayou, I ordered it, it arrived, I've started reading it. It seems to be absolutely brilliant. It covers in the documentary Murder in the Bayou, which I think is about 4 or 5 parts. It basically, in the documentary, deals with, you know, the early 2000s. In the book, we get a lot more background information going back further in time to find out exactly what sort of things were going on. So certainly once I've finished that, I'll look forward to sharing my thoughts on the book itself, which is it's called Murder in the Bayou by Ethan Brown. And I believe that here in the UK, it's on the Sky Crime Channel, and the book is available Amazon and other outlets. So yeah, well worth checking that book out. I certainly enjoyed reading the Cadaver King and the Country Dentist. That was by Radley Balco and Tucker Carrington. And I say I'm now getting through Murder in the Bayou by Ethan Brown, and I've ordered up a book about injustice by a former prosecutor. The name of the book and the author are on the tip of my tongue. No, can't remember. Anyway, when it comes, I'll get it read and give you some thoughts on that. So as I say, we'll catch you all. Obviously, we'll be doing various posts, videos to tell you more about what's planned for the virtual rally on the 20th of June. But for now, I think I'll go and have a beer, watch some motorbike speedway, and catch you all later on. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.